Finally. I'm so happy to meet you. You have an
You too.
absolutely beautiful background. I
Thank
absolutely
you.
love all of your glass work, and I would love to get into all that you do. You have a very interesting journey. So tell me a little bit about how you got into glass arts, what kind of allowed you to start a whole company around it, a whole brand around it. How did that passion ignite?
Well, it actually ignited. Say, my eye is just watering, so I do apologize.
Oh my God, no
Um,
worries. I wear contacts and my lashes, sometimes the glue gets in my eye and then it's a whole mess. So I completely
yeah, this is
understand.
dry. Yeah, good old dry eye.
Right.
So this is a fun story because I got into it with the impression, like many, I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I can't draw a stick figure. All those things I hear people come in and say every day. And it's funny because we all refer to a stick figure. It's the funniest thing. It's never that we don't color in the lines. It's always a stick figure. But my mom and dad came to California to be closer to me as they got up there in age. And at the assisted living facility they're in, there was someone who came on site and taught fused glass. And I'd never heard of it. My mom was so excited, and there hasn't been a lot in her later years. It's really gotten her so excited. So I decided, okay, I don't care if I do a good job at it or not. I'm going to take a class because mom doesn't care if I do a good job or not. Mom will love it and the fact that I want to do it with her. So I took a class and I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I was enthralled with it, but then a new studio opened closer to home and it was coming up on my mom's 85th birthday. And so my dad and I kind of looked at each other, what should we do? And I said, well, why don't we take her to the new studio that's not very far from us and have her birthday party there? And she can pass out invitations to her friends at the assisted living facility. And then it was like, okay, now how do we get them over? I said, we'll limit the number of people and we've got two cars. We'll bring them over. And then, of course, we thought, wait a minute, what about walkers and wheelchairs? Really cute. The assisted living facility volunteered to use their van. So we scheduled it around when they'd have a driver available.
Oh, that's nice.
And we came here, and the manager here was so phenomenal, so enlightening, and I fell head over heels in love with fused glass. She made me feel good about what I was doing. Mom had the best time, her friends had the best time, and I was hooked.
It's always good to have a good teacher or guide to get you into an art. I feel like that's so crucial because they're the ones who are kind of mentoring you along the way and getting you to really embrace the art and connect with it on a much deeper level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the same in any subject. When I had a teacher going up through school, the teachers that were more enthusiastic and passionate about what they were teaching, I learned so much more. And it was really obvious when you were in a class that didn't have a teacher that way.
Yeah. That's the reason why I hated math so much in high school and then came to love it in college. Growing up, I had a phenomenal English teacher. She was very short, had a little pixie, not pixie cut, a little bob going on, kind of like a coconut haircut. So crazy, so full of life, so vibrant. But she really got me into pursuing English for my bachelor's. And later on, when I applied for my master's in business administration, I just came to love my professors, and they were the ones who allowed me to pursue a more analytical approach, like business analytics. But I always had that kind of balance between the arts and, I guess you could call it math, business, whatever. It really is a mix of everything. But growing up, my own mother was an artist, so I always try to take time and paint, even though painting is something that I genuinely get so frustrated with because I always feel like it has to be perfect. And when I see art, especially in California and LA, it's so funny that you mentioned stick figures because a lot of the art that is presented in California is literally either stick figures or scribbles or just extremely abstract avant-garde type of work. It doesn't really have any direction, but there is always an interpretation behind it. And it really kind of points to the fact that you don't always have to know what direction you're going in. You just have to learn how to embrace it once the opportunity comes to you. And I think that's kind of what happened with you too, because you came from a business background, didn't you? And then you kind of
Yes,
transitioned into art. So your journey is kind of the vice versa mine.
yours. Yeah.
So how do you like it? Like how has that trajectory pointed you toward becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, the business side of it that I came from really was the masterpiece of being able to run a business. And I got out of my own head and didn't let my ego say just because you're a business person who can run a business doesn't mean you can't also be an artist. So that was huge for me. But you're right. Everyone talks about a stick figure being straight. Who says? I love one of my phrases I love using is who are they? Who are they that says something has to be a certain way? And I laugh because it has been so much of my life that I did it because that's what they said you had to do. They said you had to do this project or this trajectory or whatever. And you know what? They're not always right.
And they don't know. They don't know you. They only see you from their own perception. And that perception can either have a lot of depth or it can be very shallow. Most of the times it has a very shallow point of view because it's merely just a reflection of how people are seeing themselves. But I really am interested, yeah, I really am interested in getting into are those all of your artworks behind like on the
No,
screen? No?
no. I have 13 artists who are part of actually, there's 14 artists who are part of the Open Studio program that I have. 13 of them that contribute to the gift shop. And the other one makes stuff for her home, her friends. She's not a chef, but she loves to entertain. So she's always creating new things as she decides she wants a new type of bowl or new type of tray or something that will help. So it's so much fun to hear what all of us are different. All of us have different styles and color palettes and visions. And so we complement each other because the gift shop now it's a small gift shop in brick and mortar form, but I'm loading it up on the website. So there's just shy of 500 pieces right now that we've uploaded already. And I do apologize. I am not the best photographer, and especially not of glass art, which is very difficult to photograph, but you sure do get a good feeling of what it's all about on the website too. So yeah, some of the stuff that's on my picture behind me are my other artists as well, because I really wanted to depict that there is such a variety. And of course, the one with the food on it's mine. I think, yeah, there we go. The tray that has the yummies.
That looks
Yes,
absolutely delicious.
yes, that one's my tray. But it's fascinating to me to see the dynamics of people coming in, they're not sure what they want to make that day, or some of them come in with a very clear, defined thought. Some come in with a pattern. Some just work from their own head and just get engaged. We have a couple that we call chefs because you can just give them any pile of glass and they will come up with a masterpiece.
Wow.
And others are very particular. They only want to work with a small palette, but they can come up the most beautiful and warm and inviting gifts. And so the gift shop, I just recently tried to get it up online because being a sole entrepreneur, it's difficult to do everything yourself.
Yes.
But it has been fascinating as people are finding it. It's kind of one of those hidden gems that people just haven't quite found yet, but they, the ones that have are just in awe. They come in like an art gallery and are just mesmerized as they walk around and they'll go, "Oh my God, I love this. I love this." I said, "Okay, the challenge is find something you don't love." And they'll just burst into laughter because they realize there isn't anything they don't love. There's things maybe they don't like quite as much. Okay, I'll be honest. But there's just such a variety. It's so much fun, and it's my happy place, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't really recall because I was so young, but I do remember very vaguely going to a glass art museum. I couldn't tell you where it was, but I just thought everything was absolutely gorgeous. And I want to ask, what is a typical class like? Because from what I remember, I just remember seeing a really huge machine that I guess assisted in glass blowing. I'm not sure if that's
Right.
also incorporated, right? So, what's a typical class consist of? How do they
Well,
make their
let's break.
glass?
Yeah. So we'll break it down into really the four types of primary types of glass. So glass blowing is the most commonly known, which is kind of funny in this day and age because stained glass is so old as well in its history. But the Netflix TV show Blown Away has really just exploded the glass blowing world, and I love it to watch it. I don't enjoy doing it as much. It's much more nerve-wracking. You have to know every step, and you really can't stop and say, "What do I do next?" And that's about 2,000 degrees in that glass furnace. Fused glass is considered warm glass. That's hot glass. Warm glass is fused glass, which is you make it at room temperature. You can relax. You can, laugh with your friends and put it down, come back to it a little while later or a couple of days later. And then it goes into a kiln, which is similar to a ceramics kiln, and it heats up between 14 and 1500 degrees usually for the basic schedules. There's always exceptions. And that's done after hours. So nobody's touching it. It goes in at room temperature. It comes out at room temperature. Nobody's touching anything hot. And that cycle can be approximately 18 hours.
Wow.
So I start the kilns when the rates for electricity go down and the demand is down so that I'm not taxing our neighborhoods. And then there's stained glass, also made at room temperature. But then you need to, in some direction, you go one direction with foil and solder, and another direction you can go into lead cane. But the cuts have to be more precise and it has to fit tighter together than it does in fused glass.
Oh, okay.
And then there is mosaic. So a lot of times the leftover pieces from stained glass can be used into making beautiful pieces in mosaic. So we do mosaic, stained glass, and fused glass classes. And most of them are fused glass. So in my classes, I set it up to be technique teaching.
Mhm.
So you're always going to make something, but it's really more focused on learning the techniques so that you can move on to Open Studio when you're ready and you know the techniques you want to know. You don't have to take all of the technique classes. You don't have to do everything. You just have to know it well enough because there's no instruction with Open Studio. So you buy your materials, you're renting the space, and if you need kiln time, then that gets added on because it's done by how much space you take up in the kiln.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the intro class is learning how to cut glass, and it's really breaking glass. And it is so much fun.
I'm
I
good
wish
at
I had
that. I'm good at
cameras
breaking
on the
glass.
tables. Yeah, on purpose and in the way you want it to break. How's that? And it's working with the different kiln schedules. We have two that are offered in that class, and it's working with sheet glass and crushed glass and a few other types. And it is a 2-hour class.
Wow.
So at the end of the 2 hours, you have completed a project, and then I'll put it in the kiln. And I say about a week later to pick it up because I want to make sure the kilns are full. I want to
Right.
be energy efficient. And none of the glass gets thrown out. We reuse everything in fused glass.
That's
And
amazing.
even if a piece breaks, because if it breaks in the kiln because there's stress on the glass or it's thermal shock or it just didn't like it, you can refire it again.
Oh,
So we have a story of someone who shipped this beautiful glass bowl to her daughter as a wedding present, and it wasn't packed properly by the carrier, and it broke.
oh
And
no.
she was absolutely devastated. In fact, they couldn't even find all the pieces to return um, piece. But she was able to make some other things out of it. Some of the pieces got incorporated into other pieces of art. And we call that making lemonade.
Yeah. Just repurposing it and making something else. That's really creative. And I'm sure she loved the final product either way.
Not as much as the one that was
Yeah.
designed. She did make a new one, and it's going to be driven to her daughter this next attempt to get it to her. But most of the times when we ship glass, it is packed properly. And so the story sort of stands out more as a funny story with a sad bit, but there's a silver lining. And I would say the one thing that we have to be really careful about is not all glass. So window glass can't mix with fused glass, can't mix with stained glass per se. So there is a thing called COE, which is coefficiency of expansion. And that's at the rate in the heat that the glass expands and contracts.
Okay.
And so, yes, there's people who do wine bottles, but you actually have to use the same wine bottle through the project. You can't mix colors of wine bottles and have 100% success or 90% success. I don't think anything has 100%.
Right.
But we use Bullseye Glass Company, little tag for them, but their product is amazing. And they do guarantee that all of their product that they make will work together. And that's pretty phenomenal.
That is.
And it does give me the best success rate for my customers to be happy with their final product and the little bit of potential in the kiln creating a problem. Yes, it happens, but it's very rare. But there's electricity being run, and there's big trucks that drive by, and
What's the biggest project you can do? Like if I were to tile this bathtub with mosaics, would that be possible if I came to your studio?
um, it would be very difficult to bring the tub to the
Right.
studio. Um, but for fused glass, the biggest we can do in one piece is 23 by 35.
Okay.
And then we can also epoxy pieces together. And for stained glass, it really can go even bigger. It's sort of the limit of how big can you make it and how well can you carry it. We don't teach working with cane at this point because we don't have enough students interested to warrant the investment at this point of having all the right equipment.
Oh my gosh. I would want to make like a glass statue.
That would be kind of hard, only because the the depth of the glass makes it heavier and heavier.
Right.
And so I had a request for something that was supposed to be basically 15 by 15 inches, and they wanted it 2 inches thick, solid. And at 1 inch, that was already 21 pounds of
What?
weight of glass. And
Wow.
so I stopped at that point because the work that I would have to put in and the equipment that I would need to be able to build it out to 2 inches wasn't very feasible for me to do that project for them.
Mhm.
So I did the 1 inch so they could see if that would work for them instead. So I didn't want to say, no, I can't do something. I like to push the limits and I like to see just how far we can go
Yeah. Well, I
because
mean,
I
you
don't
made
care
it
what they
work.
say.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I am wondering, since I'm assuming are you near LA at all, or are you in
I
LA?
am northwest in Thousand Oaks, so I'm just over the LA County line, or
Oh,
and right on the border, actually.
have you ever kind of gone out and collected glass bottles just on the street and then tried to repurpose them into glass? I mean, I'm sure it would be kind of unsanitary and whatever, but
I haven't, and the reason is because of that coefficient of expansion.
I
Like with
see.
wine bottles, you have to keep it with the same bottle. So you really, as much as, and the same thing with so many other things. When somebody will break a piece at home by accident of something and they want to bring it in and incorporate it, it won't work very well.
Oh.
because they're going to expand and contract it different for the fused glass. In mosaic, you could do that. You could absolutely pick up glass from anywhere because there's no heat involved.
Oh, how is the process again with mosaic? It's literally just taking bits and pieces of different glass and then just, I guess,
Putting it together on a board or on something, it could be directly onto cement, but you're
okay.
basically trying to glue it onto a piece, design what you're looking for and glue it on, and then you put mortar, grout, sorry, grout in between the pieces for that extra, nice looking design. And you
Oh,
can use different colors of grout so that you can kind of have one section have one kind of color for the background as well as with the colors of the glass. So there's a tremendous amount you can do that most people don't even think about.
yeah. I remember being in Istanbul and I saw a mosaic elevator and my phone broke in that elevator, unfortunately. So I lost all of my pictures and everything. This
Oh
was in
no.
2016. But I was wondering, how could mosaic glass break my phone so easily? And now I know it's because it's some pretty heavy duty stuff. It's beautiful to
Exactly.
look at, but
Yes. It is gorgeous to look at, but yes, it starts to get pretty darn heavy.
yeah.
Any of the glass. Blown glass is probably the thinnest of the glass and the most delicate
Hmm.
to deal with. But again, they can build it out into quite a bit of structure as well. But when you first blow it, it can get very thin or it can be kept really thick. And it's a control, which I have no control over when I try to do blown glass. We have a person up in Santa Barbara that I adore. He's terrific. He does it with his sons. And I've been up there and I prefer to watch him do it. I am fascinated at watching more than doing on that one.
It's always more fun to watch and just see what people create. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Do you teach painting as well? Because I actually painted a glass not too long ago. I took a little wine shaped glass that I use for like my morning orange juice and I painted different flowers around it. I'll probably stick an image somewhere here, but I really enjoyed doing that and it actually came out pretty great. But do you teach painting to people who just have never held a paintbrush in their entire life? Because I see a lot of absolutely beautiful work here.
We don't quite teach it that way. We don't use the paintbrush itself. We
Okay.
use special glass paint and enamel designed for the temperatures of the fused glass. So it wouldn't be something you would do on your home wine glass or juice glass or something like that. It would be something that we do here. And a lot of that's more because I'm limited on space and there are so many other things. If I could afford a bigger space, I would to be able to bring more things in because it there is so much you can do. But we had name tags made up by somebody the other day on glass, and we put them in the kiln and had them fired because she had the best handwriting. And so then she made little designs for each of our open studio members that
Oh,
kind of depicted something that was special about them on the little name tags.
oh,
And everyone kind of goes, "Oh my God, you got name tags in glass." And they're not very heavy. They're thinner. We only used one layer of glass instead of two. Um, but it's still heavier than some pieces. So depending on the clothing you're wearing, and we have it with magnetics on the back, but it could pull on your clothes a bit if it was really thin. But for the most part, for almost everybody, it works perfectly. On a polo shirt, it's great.
yeah. Do you make jewelry as well? Have you ever considered making that? Yeah,
We do make jewelry. We make earrings and necklaces and pendants. We've made bolos.
really?
So just the piece of glass that's on the bolo.
Right.
And um, we've tried making hair piece, like barrettes.
Oh, I'm sure that's hard. I'm sure that that would pull my hair out easily.
Well, my hair doesn't hold a barrette anyways very well, so that
Okay.
didn't work quite as well. We haven't done hairpins. We did find one the other day, and we all were like, "Oh my God, do you remember when people used hairpins and for hats and stuff?" And we
Right.
thought, that's probably going to come back around again one of these days. So we're going to mentally prepare to do that.
Oh, I
But
think
we make
so.
letter openers and wine bottle tops and wine racks. A 4 bottle wine rack,
Wow.
and most of our glass is food safe.
Really?
So that, I mean, we have some that isn't, and we know which ones are which. And
Okay.
so we make a lot of bowls and trays and plates. One young gentleman had his mother commissioned him to make table setting for 8 dinner plates. So
Wow.
each one was a little bit different, but the same color palette. And he got so much joy out of it. His mom loved watching them, and every time they use them, which is almost every night, mom said, um, they just have a blast because they just remember how much fun he had, and it's a story that just keeps going. Their friends come
Right.
over, and they get to use one of the plates, and the story is told again. So it's one of the great gifts of glass is the stories that come with it, even if someone else made it. If you hear what the story is and it's a one of a kind, nothing commercially made is going to compare ever.
Right. I absolutely agree. I mean, each piece just comes out so unique. And I mean, I feel like it just motivates people to just keep creating, keep going, especially since glass is so beautiful. It's so reflective too. It's not something that you really see in the same light as a 2D painting, which can be very captivating, and paintings do tell 1,000 words, but I feel like glass just radiates a million times more. And I'm also curious about that one, the one like orb, the blue and silver one. What is that about? Because that honestly looks like a Christmas ornament, and I'm just absolutely intrigued by that.
One's actually outside of my house in my front yard. So it's garden art. So it is in a stand that is like a half moon, so you can sit in it, and it stands about 2 feet tall, and the sun hits it, and there's just color everywhere. And so that is one of my prizes. I just adore that. And people say, "Well, you make that same thing for me?" And I said, "We can't make the same thing exactly twice. It's not
Right.
in my nature. But tell me what colors you want." And all of my artists here are very open to doing commission work. You tell us the colors, and we will help devise the piece that you want for your yard, for your kitchen, for your gift. Um, I mean, it's made incredible wedding gifts for people, shower gifts. And it was really funny because I had given one gift to my friend, and she didn't realize I'd made it because she didn't realize what I was doing at this point. Now, mind you, it was several years ago. But she's just like, "Oh my God, where did you get that?" And I just lit up, and she goes, "Okay, what's that look for?" I said, "I made it." She goes, "Oh," and the whole story went on from there. And it became the whole story. And she tells her friends, and she called me the other day to say, "Okay, my friends are tired of hearing the same story because every time I pull it out, I have to tell everyone that you made it. And you made it for me specifically, and you knew my colors, and you knew my style, and you knew everything about me that made this piece so special." And
Oh,
I still kind of tear up about it because I made that big an impact on someone else
yeah.
just by doing what I love.
Oh my gosh, I would hang that on my wall, like in my vanity, everywhere I could. I love things like chandeliers, disco balls, things that just reflect like a bunch of light everywhere. So, I mean, if it were me, like I would honestly be like, hey, can you make a disco ball or chandelier or something like that? I don't even know if that's possible, but
It's a little heavy
yeah,
to do those things with, but there's ways we could alternatively do something very similar.
right?
So
Okay.
maybe not the chandelier you were thinking of, but we can definitely do light fixtures. And in fact, I tried to make one. My bathroom here got remodeled recently because unfortunately with the rains we had a flood.
Oh dear.
And so I went to go make. I had the light fixture has those little glass shades. There's a good word. And so I tried to make one, and I made it too big. I rushed it. But it made this really interesting blob because of different things that had happened through the whole process of my rushing. And it is fascinating. I have to tell you, it is much more interesting looking than what it would have been. And I'm still trying to decide exactly what I want to do with it next. So some people would have said I screwed up, and some people would have said, do you know what? I don't take any of those naysayers. I don't take anybody who wants to try to give their opinion of negative. I'll take
Right.
all the positive you want to give me, but you know what? I don't listen to the negative anymore. I did growing up. I listened to negative things. I listened to people saying you can't, you shouldn't, whatever.
Oh,
I
especially
have
in the
just
business world, you hear that all the time, every day. So,
absolutely. And even my style when I was in corporate, I mean, my style wasn't the traditional corporate person.
mhm.
Um, and I tried always to find the win-win-win situations. So what worked best for the company I was working for, what worked best for the customer I was talking to, and for their business. And even the manufacturer that made the product. It's just like I wanted everyone to look good and everyone to know that they had the right piece.
Yeah,
Because in today's knowledge with the internet, there is so much knowledge that isn't complete. It doesn't give you all the information. So I was in technology. I sold a lot of infrastructure technology. I worked for IBM and Toshiba, Sony Pictures Entertainment. I've
amazing.
been in a whole bunch of different areas of business. But most of my career was in technology, which I really loved. And I would go in for security piece so that they could secure the network because it was businesses, school districts, and government. And I would say, okay, you're naming a particular product. Let's first understand what your requirements are because not all products work the same way. The same type of thing as a car. Not all, I mean, cars will get you from one place to another, but do they all do it with all the features that you need or all the ways you want it to do? No, they're similar,
Yeah.
but there's a reason why there's so many different car brands out there. There's a reason there's so many technology brands out there. So it's one of those fun things. And even with art, there are so many different types of art. There's so many different ways of doing it. And it's just finding what works better for you and what fits you the best. And it doesn't mean it's going to be for the rest of your life. I mean, I found it in my 60s, I found fused glass. I have friends who have been since they were kids doing one type of art or some, and then moving to another, and then moving to another. And they incorporate things that they've done in the other ones into the next one.
Yeah.
And I am just fascinated at how they view the same pieces of glass that I see in front of me. I see X. They see the rest of the alphabet. And
That's a
it's
really good way to put it.
it is so much fun because people come in and I hear in the intros because they usually come in with friends
Mhm.
and they'll be like, "Well, I'm not very good at this, I can't do whatever." And when they come back a week later, I look at them and I go, "Okay, you have to open," because I bag everything up, and I go, "Okay, open it here." And they said, "Why?" I said, "Because I want to see your face when you see what you really made." And they're like, "Okay," and there's like this hesitation. It's like this concern they're going to be embarrassed.
Oh, because
And they,
I'm sure they've had art classes in school where the art teachers completely scolded them for not having the perfect technique. And then they come to a class where they finally feel like their expression is going to be somewhat accepted, but then there's still that trepidation like, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to relive that.
exactly, you nailed it. You
Yeah.
nailed it. And they open up the bag and they open up their piece and their face, it freezes with a smile, and they're speechless. And then it's like, and I said, okay, you have just proven you can never say I am not artistic again, or I don't have a creative bone in my body again, because you just proved you do.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Well, I mindset and the stories we tell each ourselves is unbelievable. And it's all because of some other reason.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to believe it because you say it to yourself so many times.
You
But
literally program it into
then,
yourself,
yeah.
and that
And so
needs
to
to
be
just
able to have
stop.
that reprogrammed, even if it's just for sure, and they look at it and they tell their friends, and oh gosh, and that's the word of mouth has been the best advertising. That's one thing they say is real.
Yeah, I believe that. I do a lot of marketing through word of mouth, and it proves to be the best because it's a real raw connection as opposed to, just branding and feeling like people are trying to sell you something. Instead, it's much better if you're not really selling anything. You're just bringing them, leading them to a new experience that they
You
may
enjoy.
enjoy. Yeah. And that
Yeah.
may add
So,
value to their life.
so what's your favorite type of art?
My favorite type of art, I want to say makeup artistry because it's just a very, it's not as tedious as actual oil painting, which I used to do a lot of, is because in mediums like that, there is definitely a demand for perfection, especially since I do a lot of portraiture. I really love drawing people's faces. That's something that I'm
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at. I mean, but that takes a lot of concentration. And while I do love drawing people's faces, I found that I have a greater passion for allowing people to feel beautiful by doing their makeup. And I love
Uh,
experimenting with different faces in that way. And a lot of the times when I do people's makeup, they look in the mirror and they are absolutely blown away because I bring their own beauty out in the art that they want to portray on their face. I don't do the same look on everyone either. I make sure that I listen to what my clients want. A lot of the times they say, I just want to look like really glowy. I want to have like this, that, and that. And so I try to incorporate it in a way that really matches them, not in a image that they want to portray. And they end up really liking it. So that's something that I really
um,
like. And I know a lot of people might be like, oh, that's so superficial. I don't really think so. I mean, men wear
no.
makeup too. It's not just women. Children love playing around with makeup at any age. I mean,
Yeah.
and makeup, it
It's
has its uses. I mean, even in the desert, like you need like some eyeliner to like kind of block out rays from the sun. So it has its purposes culturally as well. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot behind certain arts, every art really. And that's another thing that I just love about art in general. So,
yeah, I love the word art is not well defined. It
right.
is it is endless. And I think makeup artists are unbelievable. What they can do with makeup to make you feel so much more alive, so
Right.
much prettier. And I used to wear a lot more makeup than I do now. But there sure are times where I would love someone just to make up my face again so that I could take a picture again that just, yeah, makes me
I
glow.
could do it.
I
Just
know, I
call me
know.
anytime.
Absolutely. Oh, I will.
Yeah.
See, where do you live in
I'm in
Los
New
Angeles area?
Jersey,
Oh,
so
you're in Jersey now. Okay.
yeah, I
Okay.
was in LA pretty frequently last year just for personal vacations, but I would love to go out just to develop my artistry more over there because that's a great market. It's a great place to meet a lot of different people and just, go crazy. I mean,
Absolutely. And you're welcome to come here anytime. We'll do another podcast from you here.
absolutely. We
And
have
that
less
would
than a
be,
minute left, unfortunately, and I don't want it
oh,
to cut you
okay.
off. So in case you have any tags that you want to plug, I'll be happy to plug it in the description and on the screen.
Yeah. Glassartscollective.com is my home away from home. And my gift shop is off of here. I've got lots of videos and frequently asked questions. But for your audience that's all over the country and all over the world, there are artists that do fused glass and different types of glass everywhere, and they're phenomenal. Find ones that's really passionate. That would be the secret for any type of art. Find the person who's passionate about what they're doing. It makes a
Awesome.
world of difference.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. I really enjoyed
Ah,
this conversation so much. It just flew by.